I'm Tracy Austin, your host of the People Strategy Podcast. This show provides interviews with organizational leaders and ongoing coaching experiences that highlight elevating people in organizations through a people strategy roadmap. Welcome to the People Strategy Podcast. My name is Tracy Austin, and I am the Chief Talent Officer at Elevated Talent Consulting. And I just want to thank you so much for listening in each week to our thought leadership episodes along with our guest episodes as we dig into different topics and items that are really important to them. And we have a very special guest with us today. Joining us is Dr. Paul White, and Dr. White co-wrote the 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. So Dr. White, welcome to the People Strategy Podcast.
Thanks, Tracy. I'm glad to be with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will name for my listeners and for you, we've talked a lot about 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace, both on the podcast and within our leadership training programs. And it's always interesting to hear why something was created and what problem it actually solves. So why did you work with Dr. Chapman to create the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace?
Yeah, so I'm a psychologist by training, and I've done some different things, but mid-career, I was consulting with family-owned businesses across the country, dealing with the family issues intertwined with business succession planning and wealth transfer planning. I'd grown up in the context of a family-owned business, and I was working with a family and business in North Carolina, talking to the dad and CEO, and I said, how's this plan with your son going? He says, it's going well. My son's stepping up. I think it's going to work. I walk across the hall and ask his son the same question. And he says, this is a disaster. It's never going to work. I can't ever please my dad, which I could identify with. And so at that time, my wife and I were reading Dr. Chapman's The 5 Love Languages, which is a great book, sold 20 million copies, and it's for personal relationships. And I thought, I wonder if, these concepts could apply to work-based relationships. So I pursued Dr. Chapman for a year. It took me a year to get in front of him and pitch the idea. He had already had 20 plus people pitch the idea, but given the fact that I was a psychologist, understood the relational side, working with businesses, and then we actually had some commonality. We went to the same undergrad school that I think, helped trip the switch. We worked together and developed our online assessment called the Motivating by Appreciation Inventory, which has been taken by 400,000 people now and in 9 languages, and then developed some training materials and then wrote the book together. And it's been a fun ride. Amazing.
And I know I've taken all the things and read the book and whatnot. And when you look at appreciation, one of the questions that I get asked a lot in the leadership programs that I'm, working with and the teams that I'm working with is that it is appreciation's, really misunderstood. It's like, is it just words? Is it just saying thank you? Or is it more than that? So what are those misconceptions of appreciation?
Yeah, we find 4 common ones among business leaders. One is they think that appreciation is the same thing as employee recognition. And it definitely isn't. They overlap some, but really employee recognition is focused on performance and achieving goals. And when it's designed well and implemented consistently, it works well. But it doesn't work in helping maybe make individuals feel valued because it wasn't created to do that. And when you try to do it, it's sort of like driving a hammer with a wrench. It just doesn't work real well. And so we actually come in and help companies often sort of build an intervention of teaching people how to show appreciation at a personal level rather than just recognition and use them together. So, recognition is about performance. We believe that appreciation is about the person, that employees, owners, everybody, we're more than production units, and that we have value beyond what we produce, and we help people discover and communicate that. Second misconception is that appreciation is words. In our culture, pretty much when people hear about appreciation, they think about, compliment or praise. And through our research with our inventory, we found that over half of employees want to be shown appreciation in a way, in a language different than words. So if you only use words from the get-go, you're missing half of your team members. And so that's important to understand. And a lot of people don't know what else to do. And that's really our goal, is we help sort of broaden that repertoire of what you can do to show appreciation. Third one is what the goal of appreciation is. I've had plenty of business leaders say we pay them. That's our appreciation. Problem is they wind up having a lot of turnover because of that. The goal isn't just to make people feel good or happy. We like that to happen. But from our perspective, the goal of appreciation is to create an effective, functional organization. It's sort of like oil in a machine. If you don't have oil, the machine parts that try to work together, they stick, there's tension, there's friction, heat, sparks. And for us, appreciation is like the oil in your organization. It helps the team work together. And we have, I don't know, over 50 research citations in our second chapter of our book that demonstrates the positive impact on organizations. And then the last one, and this is understandable, but a lot of leaders think that they primarily have the responsibility to show appreciation to their team. And we find that that's too much responsibility and weight. And that also doesn't work as well as teaching team members and colleagues how to show appreciation to one another. So we spread it both sort of, lateral as well as up and down. And one of the cool things about appreciation is not based on the org chart. I mean, it doesn't go top down. It's really from any person to person. So we help address those, and it's fun to see it grow across the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for kind of walking through those kind of four misconceptions. So I'm just going to rephrase them really quickly. And that is, it's appreciation is not the same as recognition, because recognition is performance and appreciation is about the person. And then it is, half of folks want to hear appreciation through words, and half of folks want to be shown appreciation. The third was to show and have the appreciation kind of be like that oil in the team that's greasing that. So, it's not just this feel good thing, but it's really around how we're communicating together and feeling about us personally and not just the work. And then the fourth is it's not just about the leader. It's about everybody appreciating each other back and forth.
Yeah, got it.
So I'm curious within that, how do you show appreciation at work, going back to the second misconception?
Yeah, so that's where the 5 languages come in. And for those that are familiar with the 5 love languages, they're the same in name, but they look differently in daily life. So words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, tangible gifts, and yes, even physical touch. And that's always an interesting one to talk about. So
yeah, especially in the HR world, we're like, no touch. But then it's like, yes, is a hug okay? Is it not okay?
Yeah.
And for some, they need that hug, right? But
yeah, when we talk to HR leaders, sometimes I have a slide about sort of teasing that, that the HR people feign, say, oh, we're going to be sued. And let me just go ahead and I'll talk about touch. So we did not want to advocate a touchless society, even in the workplace, because in healthy and appropriate relationships and settings, it can be a good thing, actually, in healthcare and in senior care settings and so forth. But also it happens, but it happens differently. It's regionally. It's largely spontaneous celebration, right? It's a high five when you finish a project, maybe a fist bump when you solve a problem. It can be a congratulatory handshake. Cross-culturally, because our work is used across the world, a pat on the back is the cross-cultural most appropriate way. And, I lived in Atlanta for a while, and in the South, they give side hugs and that kind of thing. In New York, New Jersey, it's just sort of, hey, just sort of a nod across the room. And so you have to pay attention to regional differences and cultural differences. Our Latin friends and Southern European, Portuguese, Spanish, Italian are more physical. That feels real cold to them without any kind of touch. So, but it's always the recipient always gets to determine what's appropriate. And it's less than 1% of the workforce chooses physical touch. So we address it, but we don't focus on it. The main one is words. So words is chosen by 46% of the workforce as the way they want to be shown appreciation. But one of the things that we learned over time is that just knowing the language of appreciation isn't sufficient. You need to know the specific actions as well. So, a personal, comment from one person to another is clearly pretty common and appropriate. You can write a note. One of the things we found that 40% of employees generally don't like to go up in front of a large group to be recognized, and actually can be quite negative. And introverts, get a little bit anxious about interacting one-on-one. So, using a note or email or whatever, writing it can be fine. But it needs to be specific. One of the things we got 95,000 people on our newsletter list. We do polls occasionally. We ask what people don't like to hear. They don't like to hear "good job" because it's too vague, doesn't really mean anything, doesn't take any time or effort. So the more specific you are about what you value about them and why it's important to you is helpful. Quality time is another language, and that differs. Actually, we have some research shows generational differences, that those of us that are older, sort of quality time was time with our supervisor or manager, either just feeling valued by them, investing time in us, or being able to talk about things or ask questions. But for younger employees, it's more about collegial relationships, hanging out with their peers. So I tell older leaders, just because you have a team member that has quality time as their language doesn't mean they want time with you. You may be wonderful, great, but they want to hang out with their friends, go out to lunch, go out afterwards. So, and that's 26, or about 1 out of every 4 employees.
So, that's so interesting. I didn't realize that difference. And, it's been a bit since I've read, your book cover to cover, right? But that's really interesting, is that generational difference of quality time with, their boss versus with peers, and how that's set up.
Yeah. And so what we found is in any of these, you can get the language right, but the action wrong, and you still sort of miss the target. So we got to get specific. Acts of service, it's not rescuing a low performing colleague. It's really often it's when somebody's working on a time limited project, they're banging away hard on it. What's something you can do to help out? Whether that's bring in lunch so they can keep working, or maybe answer the phone or emails for them so they can stay focused on the project. Or in a service oriented kind of work, maybe, everybody shows up at the front desk at once, what can you do to help out the receptionist or answer the phones and so forth. It's 22% of the workforce, so 1 out of every 5. It's important to understand these people because for them, their sort of life mantra is words are cheap. Don't tell me you support me, show me. And so if you just praise them all the time and never help them out, they get pretty cynical about whether you really give a rip about them. So it's important to pay attention to that. And acts of service is one of those things. We've created different versions of our inventory for different industries, because the act of service in a public school for a teacher is different than a nurse in a hospital versus a carpenter at a work site, or in a veterinarian, dentist. We have all different versions so that the actions match the work setting. Fifth language, because we already talked about physical touch, is tangible gifts. It's not bonuses. It's not raises. That's sort of the employer-employee contract. But again, think about appreciation being person to person. It's just small things that show that you're getting to know your colleagues and what they like. So bringing in their favorite kind of coffee or tea, maybe bringing in, if you order pizza, make sure that you order the kind that people like, or I have a team member who's gluten intolerant, so we get gluten-free. But it also can be just like a magazine from the grocery store about a new hobby for them. Maybe they're starting to do a garden and do that, or it doesn't even have to cost anything. It could be like, let's say one of your team members is starting to coach their kids' soccer team, and you find a website that's got some training videos that they could use with their kids. It's just that you're getting to know them, you think about them, and take the time and effort. This is the case where it is the thought that counts. It's not how much you spend. So even in government settings where you can't spend money, you can still do tangible gifts. But
yeah. Absolutely. And I love tying this back to other guests we've had on the show. So Jonathan Reynolds with Titus Talent Solutions talks about, hey, if he has an employee that, needs that sponsorship for the kids' baseball team, they're going to do that because it supports that employee, within that, or they'll give them the time off for that, which is kind of paying attention to both of those. And then
Yeah.
Adam with Potawatomi Bingo and Casino is on 2 weeks prior to when this one will go live, or 3 maybe. And one of the things Adam talks about is they send out a survey to their new hires before they come in asking, what kind of beverage do you like? Non-alcoholic. What is the candy bar that you like? What is the food that you like? And they have that at the desk and, as they come in on their first day. And so it's so fun to see how these pieces are coming into the day-to-day work environment.
Yeah. Now, an important point is that only 7% of employees choose tangible gifts as the main way they want to be shown appreciation. And most recognition programs focus on tangible gifts. So there's a lot of money being wasted in this. I mean, people aren't going to give it back or don't want it. But
No.
I've had plenty of people say, if I never hear anything, if nobody ever stops by, see how I'm doing, if they don't give me some help when, I'm sort of working against the clock, and then I get a gift and it's paid by the company, versus personally, it doesn't feel, very authentic. It feels pretty superficial. So now gifts along with one of the other languages can really be meaningful. But the key is it has to be personal. It has to be from you to them as a person, not as an organizational act. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's interesting about both of those is it's paired with, potentially quality time. If we're going to have this on your desk when you come in, then spend time with you, right?
Yeah.
Or, hey, here's that piece for something with your kids or whatnot. We're chatting about that. I'm curious, do you ever find that the inventories are used in onboarding along with, coming into organizations as an intervention piece?
Yeah, actually, I'll offer an article to your listeners that was written about us by the New York Times. I mean, they approached us, they had heard about us, approached us, and it's about a mining company in South Dakota and Colorado that the miners, the truck drivers, and all that apply this. And what was cool is they came up with that. We have visual symbols for each of the language, and they wanted stickers to put on their helmets for that. But in that organization, they don't get to go through the inventory until they've gotten through their probation period, which for them is 3 months. So it's sort of a badge of honor. Okay, I've gone through probation. Now we get to take the inventory, do the training, and now we're sort of part of the team. So yeah, more and more it's being used as onboarding.
I love that idea of taking that insight of let's really get to know our folks, but we're going to do it 90 days in because we know that it's an investment, both training and whatnot into it. And then that's that piece. In the construction industry, they love the stickers on the hard hats, whether it's like the predictive index stickers of what profile they are, whether it is, hey, I went through a new hire buddy program and I'm a new hire buddy, or what you're talking about, like they want to be appreciated and know that they did something that others then can acknowledge them for.
Yeah.
So we've talked about a little bit about why it's important to know what that appreciation is and what those are. But I'm curious, why is it important to know exactly, what theirs are not, along with what yours is, so that you're connecting with folks where they are?
Yeah. So, I mean, a common human characteristic is we tend to assume other people like what we like. And so most of us start out by sharing appreciation in the way that's meaningful to us. And that's fine. The problem is, regardless of what your language is, over half of your team is going to have a different language, and sometimes as much as 3/4 or more. And so if you're showing appreciation to them in the way that's been meaningful to you, but not to them, it creates a weirdness because for you, you're doing things and putting forth effort, but you're not really getting much response because it's really not hitting the target for them. And they feel sort of weird, like, why is this person keep stopping by to spend time with me when that's not what's important to them? So as a leader, you can wind up sort of gathering people who are like you, and you may be great, but you wind up having a bunch of little mini yous versus really a diverse team of different interests and motivations that help make a team work well. So it becomes it can become a blind spot, especially your least valued one. We assess that as well as your top two, because that's when it's not important to you, don't think about it, but you have team members that have that language. And if you don't think about it, you're going to miss opportunities to show them appreciation in a way that's meaningful to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like when we look at the 4 levers of engagement in the workplace, leading others the way they need to be led is so incredibly important, and ensuring that you're showing that appreciation in the same way.
Yeah.
So many of our listeners utilize predictive index, and I know that you've done some research on personality assessments, specifically DISC and Myers-Briggs. And so often I get asked questions about, is there a correlation between the appreciation style and, how they show up on a personality assessment? And I'm kind of like, I have no idea. I can give insight, but I have no idea because I don't have the data. So I'm curious if there is any data around that.
Yeah, we did research and published it in 2 journals, both about the DISC and then the Myers-Briggs. And to look at, okay, is there any, correlation between your personality style and how you want to be shown appreciation? And it's not, it's almost a zero correlation. It's just totally random. So you can't take, like on the DISC, somebody who's a D and is sort of direct and dominant and is a leader that way, and predict what language is going to be important to them. Same thing with maybe a C who's very detail oriented and wants things exactly right. The appreciation language differs. How they correlate or intersect, better word, is that the personality type can tell you for what they like to be shown appreciation. So a D on the DISC would like to be appreciated for being a leader and making decisions and taking risks, whereas a C would want to be appreciated for making sure everything is detailed correct, and very sort of organized. But how they are shown appreciation or how they want to be shown appreciation is what our measure, the motivating by appreciation inventory, shows. So you can use them together to get both the for what and how you're going to hit the mark on how they want to be shown appreciation.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And most of our listeners are either business owners, they're looking at a potential succession within the business, or HR leaders inside of an organization. And so I'm curious, what are some of those kind of positives that you've seen with individuals and organizations that have used the 5 languages of appreciation, and the impact that that has on workplace culture, on retention, and on employee engagement?
Yeah. So the easiest, most direct one, it creates a more positive workplace environment, right? Because people are sharing positive reflections, and it's very specific. And we talk about being authentic. It's about authentic appreciation. We're not teaching people how to look like you appreciate somebody when you go through the motions. It's about being authentic. But the results that happen, and this is really important these days, is that when team members feel valued, they don't leave. And there used to be a saying, employees don't leave a job, they leave a manager. That's less true than it used to be. For younger workers, it's more about the collegial and peer relationships that they need to feel valued among each other. So we decrease staff turnover. We also help create an environment where people want to work. So when you're competing against other workplaces in your locale, or even across the nation, that finding out sort of what the culture is like, it's enticing. And then a key one right now as well is being able to stay connected to your remote and hybrid employees. We did research during and after COVID and found that people that really managed the stress of working from home and all of that happened, those that managed it better stayed connected with their peers at a personal level. So they weren't just talking to their manager, and they weren't just talking to their peers about work, but what's going on if somebody was sick, or how your kids are doing. And so we provide sort of the tool, and we've created a virtual training process for virtual teams and remote team members on how to show appreciation across a distance. And so key factors that really can reduce turnover, help you recruit, stay connected to your remote employees. And the other thing really is that it creates a more positive experience for the manager, because you're not having to deal when people feel valued, they're less chippy. They don't get upset over the stupid little things that bug us, what size their monitor is, or they got a newer computer recently, or their parking spot, or having a window, or whatever. And those sort of flow away when people feel valued. So your time and energy is focused on the mission of your organization.
I love that. When people feel valued, they are less chippy. I've never heard chippy before, so I love the new language. So I want to circle this back around as we start to close out. You opened our podcast with a story about why you reached out to Dr. Chapman and, the son who's saying like, I can't succeed because there's no way that I'm ever going to, meet my dad's expectations. And so I'm curious, what happened in that organization?
Yeah, so we continued to work with them, and the business succession plan went through. The dad was able to, sort of over time hand things over, retire. He's still sort of like the CEO emeritus. Son took over. Business is doing well. I think part of it was there was a sense of stability that was brought because they were connected better. And again, it wasn't just them, but we taught team members how to show appreciation to one another. So
what
sort
was
of flow from there.
Yeah. What was the language of the appreciation with a father versus the son?
I don't remember. I would, I don't. I would guess just from knowing that for the son it was time, quality time, and in that sense of getting time with people that he valued without distractions.
Got it.
And the dad, lots of times older guys say, I don't need to be appreciated. What they're saying is, I don't need to be told that I'm appreciated, and that some other action sort of is underneath the surface. And a way to get to that is what makes them feel encouraged? Because encouragement and appreciation are pretty close. Just appreciation is about the past, and encouragement is about the future.
That's an amazing nugget, that link between appreciation and encouragement. So about the past and about the future. So as we, close out today, I'm curious, what is a challenge that you have for our listeners as they're thinking about, how do I appreciate my employees?
Well, one is you need to understand the specifics, and asking somebody how they want to be shown appreciation it's sort of a weird conversation. And all you get is, I don't know, tell me thanks, so you don't get much. So that's really why our assessment's a key. And like we mentioned, I'll be glad to make a sample report available for people so they can see that. But the key really is to start somewhere with somebody. Don't sort of sit back and make a Gantt chart or, a spreadsheet and how you're going to make this happen. You just got to think about somebody that you work with, that if they didn't do what they do, your life would be a lot tougher. It'd be good to show them appreciation. Or because we know 79% of the people who leave a job cite a lack of appreciation as a key factor. If you have a key person that you don't want to lose, better have a target on them to show them appreciation, or somebody that's discouraged. So just identify somebody, identify for what, be as specific as you can, what either an action or a character quality. And, just do it personally or through writing, and it's unlikely that you'll offend them that way. And then maybe have your team take the assessment so you can teach them how to show it to one another.
Amazing. And we will have your email in the show notes, which is yesdrpaul@gmail.com, so that they can request that information for that sample report, and find out some more information about you. So we will have all of those links there as well. And with that, one of the ways that we love to be appreciated, at the People Strategy Podcast is your 5-star reviews, and what specifically within our show was meaningful for you review that had an impact in your work environment. So if you could show us that appreciation through the 5-star review, that would be phenomenal. So thank you so much for being with us on the People Strategy Podcast, and we will see you again next week. Awesome. So, Dr. Paul, I thank you so much for the conversation.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. One of the things that I love to ask is, what else can I do for you?
Well, this is great. And if you can, point people to our website, appreciationatwork.com.
Yep,
and
for sure.
And then when or before or when you post this, just let us know and we'll put it out on our social media. And if you, I don't know how much podcast hosts do this, but if you know of other podcasters that you think I'd be a good guest for, that kind of reference would be great.
Yeah, I have several. So I will send you an email kind of with what that list is. We do use a media company called Rise 25, and they will send a note to you as to when this is live. And of course, we'll tag you and put it all over our social media as well. And okay. I'll ask the reciprocal question, which is, do you have any other guests that would potentially be a great fit on the People Strategy Podcast?
Yeah, there's a couple. Michael Lee Stallard wrote a book, and I always I think it's the Culture Connection or Connection Culture. I can't remember which, but just sort of takes our stuff and goes a little further with it. There's another guy, John Ruhlin, Ruhlin, who's sort of he wrote a book called Giftology, and he's sort of the corporate gift guru on how companies can use gifting as marketing and securing and clients.
Okay.
If I think of any others, I'll let you know, but those two come to mind.
Okay. Phenomenal. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Now, have you been on the show Real Good Ventures with Sarah Best and why am I blanking?
I don't think so. The name
okay,
doesn't ring.
That would be a great one. They're also another PI partner, so I can make that connection. There's a couple others, but that's the one that's popping in my head the loudest at this point in time.
Okay. Yeah.
Great. Amazing. Well, I am definitely looking forward to, getting the certification training, within 5 languages. Cause like I said, it's always fun to dig in a little bit deeper and go a little bit further with that as well.
Cool. Good. All right. Just let us know if there's anything we can do to help you out. That'll be a good extra tool for you to use with your clients, I think.
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
In training. So great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Paul. I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I appreciate all that you're doing.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Yep. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening today. I'd love to connect with you. If you'd like to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn at Tracy, TRACI Austin, and at our website at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. If you'd love to learn more about our process, please reach out to us. And again, thank you so much for listening and sharing your feedback with us through a review. Have a fantastic day.